My mother-in-law convinced my wife to divorce me and stole everything I built, but her one mistake turned their dream into a legal nightmare. I'm a 45-year-old male and have been running my own construction management firm for 15 years now. It's not some huge corporation, but a solid business that pays the bills and then some. We specialize in mid-size commercial projects, strip malls, office renovations, that kind of thing. I started it with just me and 2 guys I trusted. Now, we've got 28 employees and offices in 2 cities. I'm not trying to brag, just setting the stage here. I met Beth, a 30-year-old female, about 12 years ago at a friend's housewarming. She was 30 then, freshly dumped by some guy who left her with a mountain of credit card debt and student loans from a philosophy degree she never used. She was working as a part-time fitness instructor, barely making rent in a shitty apartment with 3 roommates. She had this side gig selling essential oils or something through one of those MLM things, but it wasn't going anywhere. We hit it off right away. She was gorgeous, yeah. Tall, athletic. With this infectious laugh that could light up a room. But it wasn't just the looks, she had this energy about her, ambitious, but lost. Like, she knew she was meant for bigger things, but couldn't figure out the path. I could tell she just needed someone to believe in her, so I did, being the supportive therapist I am. Our first date was nothing fancy, just coffee that turned into lunch, that turned into dinner because we couldn't stop talking. By the 3rd date, I was helping her make a budget to tackle her debt. By the 6th, I was falling hard. There was just something about her determination that got me. She wasn't looking for handouts, she wanted to build something of her own. After we dated for a few months, I helped her consolidate her debt. I wasn't trying to be her savior or anything, but watching her stress over minimum payments while interest piled up was stupid when I could help. I paid off the highest interest cards, and she started making payments to me instead. No interest. It made way more sense financially. We moved in together after 8 months and got engaged at 18 months. When we got married 2 years after meeting, I even fronted the cash for her to start her own health supplement brand. Some subscription box thing with protein powders and herbal supplements. She had this vision of building a wellness empire targeting women who wanted natural fitness solutions, whatever that meant. But she was passionate about it, and I wanted to support her dreams. Before we tied the knot, I insisted on a prenup. Not because I didn't trust her, I was crazy about her, but because I watched my dad lose everything in his divorce 20 years earlier. The man built a plumbing business for 30 years and ended up living in a studio apartment while his ex-wife, not my mom, kept the house, the vacation property, and half his future earnings. Dad died still bitter about it. It taught me that love doesn't protect you from someone's entitlement when things go south. So, I was straight up with Beth about it. Look, I'm building something that I plan to someday pass down to our kids, I told her. I need to protect that core asset. Everything we build together will be ours together. But what I bring in has to stay protected. Beth wasn't thrilled about the prenup, pouted for a few days, but seemed to get it eventually. I understand why you need this protection, she said after meeting with the lawyer I paid for. I'd never try to take what you built before me. She signed it and we moved on. The terms were pretty standard. I kept what I brought in. She kept what she brought in, which was basically just debt I'd helped her clear. And we'd split anything acquired during marriage $7,525 in my favor if she initiated divorce without cause, like abuse or infidelity. If I initiated without cause, she'd get 40%. If we both agreed to divorce, it would be 60-40 in my favor. At the time, it seemed more than fair given our respective starting positions. She was getting a fresh financial start, and I was protecting what I'd spent years building. The first few years were good, real good. We moved into a nice house in a gated community. Nothing flashy, just comfortable. We traveled a bit. Her business grew steady, not huge, but respectable. She had about 5,000 subscribers at the peak, bringing in maybe $30,000 to $40,000 in profit annually. I was proud of her hustle. She'd post workout videos, nutrition tips, all that stuff, and built a little community. I never micromanaged her business or spending. We had separate accounts for personal stuff, joint accounts for household expenses, and her business had its own accounts that I helped set up but didn't touch. I just wanted us both to thrive in our lanes. But around year 5, things started shifting. First, it was small stuff. She'd drop $800 on a purse without mentioning it. When I brought it up, she'd say, "Don't you want me to look good? It's an investment in my brand image." Then it escalated to guilt trips. If you really loved me, you wouldn't question what I spend. Eventually, it became a pattern. Buy something ridiculous, make me feel like shit for asking about it, then give me the silent treatment for days. I hate that manipulative silent treatment crap. Give me a straight-up argument any day. But Beth mastered the art of weaponized silence. She'd just disappear emotionally until I apologized for whatever crime I'd committed. Usually, by buying her something even more expensive to make up for it. A classic reinforcement of bad behavior. But you don't always see that when you're in it. In year 6, she suddenly needed a home office renovation. It cost me $20,000 to convert our guest room into a creator space with custom built-ins and perfect lighting for videos, the works. I didn't mind. Business was good. And she seemed genuinely excited about scaling her brand. In year 7, she decided our house wasn't good enough anymore. We needed something in the right neighborhood to reflect our status. I pushed back a bit, but eventually caved. We bought a bigger place in an even nicer gated community. 4 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, way more than we needed for just the 2 of us. But whatever made her happy. I was working 60-hour weeks anyway, barely home to enjoy it. Looking back, I should have seen what was coming, but you know how it is when you're in it. You excuse the red flags as rough patches and keep pushing forward. I just figured she was going through some kind of phase or maybe feeling insecure about her business not growing as fast as mine. I tried to be supportive, keep the peace. Around our 8th year together, Beth started referring to our house as her design project when talking to friends. The first time I heard it, I laughed it off. By the 10th time, it bugged me. We'd picked everything together and I'd paid for 90% of it, but suddenly she was acting like she'd created this amazing space all on her own. She started hosting these wellness brunches at our place where she'd invite a bunch of women over. I'd come home to find these groups of women sitting around our living room, drinking green smoothies and talking about manifesting abundance or whatever. Normally, I wouldn't care. It was her house too. She could have friends over. But I started noticing how she talked about me when I wasn't supposed to be listening. Mike's at work as usual with this dismissive tone, or men just don't understand the vision we have as female entrepreneurs. Little digs that added up. Whenever I had a business win, landing a major client or hitting a revenue milestone, she'd brush it off. That's good, babe. You're supposed to make money. But when she gained 100 followers on Instagram, I was expected to bring her a gift and celebrate her brand growth. The shift from partner to a queen with an attitude wasn't overnight. It was slow, subtle. She just gradually decided she deserved everything without acknowledging where it came from. Her attitude became, of course, you should buy me nice things. Look who you get to be married to. As if her existence was some kind of gift to me that required constant payment. About 6 months ago, I started noticing weirder stuff. Beth suddenly password locked her phone. She'd never done that before. She'd angle her screen away when I walked into her room, started going to the bathroom to take calls, and spent hours on her laptop with AirPods in, having conversations I couldn't hear. She'd disappear for entire Saturdays for networking events, but was vague about who else was there or what they discussed. She started listening obsessively to these self-empowerment podcasts with titles like Taking What You Deserve and The Value of a Wife, leaving the episodes playing on our smart speakers sometimes. Between the usual fitness and wellness accounts were these random lawyers and women's financial coaching pages I'd never seen before. One coach's bio said something weird like, helping women secure the bag their husbands didn't know they packed. Another had this tagline about reclaiming your worth in a relationship and asset protection strategies for modern women. I scrolled through her recent activity trying to understand why Beth would follow these accounts. That's when I noticed her search history had stuff like marriage contract loopholes and documenting emotional patterns in relationships. There was even a search for how to prove controlling behavior. That last one hit me hard. Controlling me? I've always bent over backwards to support her dreams, never questioned her spending, never even raised my voice during arguments. Why would she be looking into this stuff? Was she helping a friend through something, planning to become some kind of relationship coach herself? Or was there something more personal behind these searches? I put her phone back exactly where I found it, feeling a weird mix of confusion and unease. Maybe I was overthinking things, but these weren't the kind of accounts a happily married woman typically follows. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting beneath my feet, like the first tremor before an earthquake. Then, out of nowhere, Beth casually asks over dinner, "Hey, could I review our prenup again? Just curious about something." Alarm bells went off. Nobody gets just curious about a prenup after 10 years unless they're planning something. Why? I asked, trying to sound normal. Oh, just something Jill mentioned about the standard terms these days. Probably nothing, but I'd like to refresh my memory. She smiled like it was no big deal. I told her I'd dig it out of the safe deposit box next time I was at the bank. I never did, of course, but that's when I started paying attention, real attention. Her inner circle wasn't helping. Her best friend Jill was always saying things like, "Beth, you're the brand. He's just the background." Or her mom Rita dropping gems like, "A smart woman always secures her future. Men come and go always," when they thought I couldn't hear, but houses have vents and sound travels. Rita had been divorced 3 times, each one leaving her better off financially than the last. She'd been pushing Beth since day one to keep her options open. I used to think it was just Rita being Rita, bitter and high on her own survival story. But then, one morning, I was passing by Beth's home office while she was on a call with her mom on speaker. Door halfway closed. I wasn't trying to spy, but when someone's voice echoes through your hallway, you can't exactly unhear it. "You should talk to Jasper," Rita said. "He's brilliant when it comes to financial resets. Helped one of my friend's daughters sort her situation out clean. You don't have to stay stuck just because you feel obligated." Beth didn't say much. Just this little of agreement, like the name wasn't new to her. I froze outside the door. Jasper. That wasn't a name I'd heard around our circle. And the way Rita said it, like he was part therapist, part financial assassin, set off something in my gut. Why the hell did they need all this talk about financial resets? They were planning something. I just needed confirmation. That night, I asked Beth casually, "Who's Jasper?" She barely blinked. "Oh, just someone Jill mentioned from a finance group." Cool insights. Then she changed the subject like it was nothing, but it wasn't. I checked her Instagram. There he was, Jasper, late 30s, polished, smug, bio full of red flags, helping women reclaim power from financial imbalance. It was a playbook, one designed to bleed men dry. I wasn't confronting Beth yet. I needed to be sure. I asked one of our mutual friends, Kim, at a group dinner. She froze. "No idea who that is," she said too fast. Tara, another friend, slipped up over coffee. "I think maybe that's the guy from her investment group." Then she changed the subject like it burned her tongue. That was enough. I had my answer. So one Thursday, I told Beth I had a site inspection across town that would run late. Instead, I wrapped up early and came home around 3 p.m. The garage door was closed, but Beth's car was inside. As I walked in through the side door, I heard murmuring from upstairs. I quietly went up, not trying to catch her cheating. Honestly, that would have been simpler. Instead, I found her in our home office, laptop open on a Zoom call. I stood in the hallway out of frame and listened. A man was talking, and I bet it was Jasper. "You've wasted 10 years catering to a man's ego," he was saying. "Your contributions to that marriage are worth way more than some outdated prenup. You can own that house, you just need to play it smart. My consulting fee is steep, but once we're done, you'll never worry about money again." Beth was nodding, taking notes. "The prenup doesn't account for emotional labor and lost opportunities," she said. "I could have been huge by now if I hadn't been playing supportive wife. I've put in just as much as he has." "Exactly," he said. "That's why we need to document everything. Every time he made you feel small, every time he questioned your spending or your business decisions. We're building a pattern of control here. You need to start recording conversations, saving texts, anything that shows he limited your growth." I remember standing there like, what the hell is going on? I almost burst in right then. Supportive wife? Yeah, that's right. But something stopped me. If I confronted her, she'd know I was onto her. Better to let her think her plan was working while I prepared my own defense. I backed away silently, went downstairs, then made noise coming in the front door. "Honey, I'm home early." By the time I got upstairs, the call was ended and she was just checking emails. "How was your inspection?" she asked, all innocent. "Fine," I said. Foundation looked solid. The irony wasn't lost on me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was sad, but because I was freaking pissed and because I needed a plan. The woman I'd built a life with for a decade was actively plotting to destroy me. To take everything I'd worked for by painting me as some kind of monster. And the worst part? If I hadn't caught on, it might have worked. I didn't confront Beth about Jasper. I wouldn't give her the chance to spin some story or accuse me of spying. Instead, I started preparing methodically like I would for any business contingency. So the first thing the next morning, I called my lawyer. I gave him a situation update. We discussed worst-case scenarios and built defenses for each. He said if she was talking to some coach about the prenup, chances were she'd try to claim coercion, fraud, or emotional abuse. Stuff that's hard to disprove. He told me to document everything. Keep a voice recorder on me during tough conversations, save every text and email, and build a record that showed the reality. Her unlimited spending, separate accounts, and all the financial support I'd given her over the years. Next, I pulled all our financial records for the past 5 years, bank statements, investment accounts, credit card bills, property assessments, everything. I created a timeline of major purchases and transfers, documented every time I'd fronted money for her business, every vacation I'd paid for, every designer item in her closet. I quietly installed security cameras around the house, doorbell, garage, main living areas, all with cloud backup, not to spy, but to protect myself legally. When someone's planning to screw you over, they often don't stop at financial games. I'd heard horror stories of guys being set up with false domestic violence claims. I wasn't going to let that happen to me. I separated my business accounts further from our personal ones. Technically, they were already separate entities, but I removed any automatic transfers and updated all passwords and access permissions. I changed the passwords on every account I could think of. Email, cloud storage, investment portals. I also started documenting everything, every conversation, every weird request, every time she met with Jill or mentioned Jasper. Not in a creepy way, just notes with dates and basic facts. If this was headed where I thought I'd need a clear record. At that point, I started wondering if I was going too far because what I was doing felt too much like I was suddenly a detective, not a husband. I kept thinking, what if this was all just noise? What if the wellness calls and cryptic comments were just her being dramatic, not dangerous? I hated the idea of seeing my own wife as a threat, but that gut feeling wouldn't go away. If I ignored it and she really was setting me up, I'd only have myself to blame. I set up a separate email account she didn't know about and started forwarding important documents there. Backed up photos and videos of us together. They showed a happy couple, not some abusive situation she might try to invent. The whole time, I acted normal. Still brought her coffee in the morning. Still asked about her day. Still showed up for the dinners and events that mattered to her. I wasn't trying to punish her, just protect myself. About 2 weeks into my prep, I saw an opening I couldn't ignore. We were refinancing the lake house that summer, routine stuff just locking in a better rate. Normally, Beth didn't care much about the paperwork side of things as long as the payment stayed manageable and she could decorate however she wanted. She was happy to let me handle the logistics. But lately, she'd been laser-focused on anything financial, asking to review the prenup, dropping terms she'd never used before. So when I sat down with my lawyer, I asked if we could revisit the agreement, add protections in case false claims ever entered the picture. Nothing drastic, just something to trigger a more one-sided split, 85-15, if things went nuclear under certain accusations like coercion or emotional abuse. If she filed honestly or we agreed mutually, the original terms would still stand. We didn't remove her protections. We just added clarity for mine. When the paperwork came in, I framed it exactly how it was. Hey, you asked about the prenup stuff a few weeks ago, I told her. They said since we're refinancing the lake house, they needed everything updated and re-executed to be clean on record. So they included a fresh copy. You'll need to sign again. It's standard when properties are involved. You can look through it if you want. Most of it's the same. And to her credit, she actually read through a good chunk, not cover to cover, but she flipped through the prenup pages, highlighted a section about asset retention, and made a few comments about how outdated the wording sounded. As she skimmed through, I mentioned the Sedona spa package I'd booked for her. The one she'd been daydreaming about for months, 5 days, all inclusive. Her face softened. She smiled, said something about how perfectly timed it was, and kept working through the paperwork at her pace. There was no pressure. I stayed quiet, focused on my own stack beside her. Eventually, she initialed every page and signed at the end, adding her usual smiley face next to her name, just like always. You deserve it, I told her. And I meant that in a way. I wasn't trying to trap her. I was protecting myself from what she was already halfway planning. After she got back from the spa retreat, the tension was unbearable. We weren't arguing, but we weren't normal either. Every word felt careful. Every glance too controlled. She smiled like everything was fine, but something had shifted and I knew she felt it too. We were both quietly sizing each other up. What hit me hardest was the confusion. I gave everything to that relationship. Time, money, support, whatever she needed, I was there. And for a long time, she seemed genuinely happy. Not fake, not forced happy. So why now? Why twist something solid into a strategy? It made no sense unless happiness had just been part of the act. 2 weeks later, Tara was hosting a birthday dinner at her place. Just close friends, Beth said, which meant Jill, Rita, a couple from her fitness studio, and that guy Dan who did her brand photography. Not my crowd, but whatever. I played nice, made small talk, complimented the food. During dessert, Beth held her glass and stood up. I want to toast to Tara on her birthday and to all of you amazing people who've been part of my journey, she said, all misty-eyed. You've watched me grow from a struggling fitness teacher to building my brand, and now I'm entering a new phase of rediscovering myself. Maybe solo. The table went dead silent. Everyone looked from her to me, except Jill, who was nodding supportively, like this wasn't a bomb being dropped in the middle of chocolate cake. I took a slow sip of water, set down my glass, and looked directly at Beth. "Let me know when your lawyer's ready." "Mine already is." Her face was priceless. She tried to laugh it off, putting her hand on my shoulder. "Oh, Mike, always the logical one. I'm just talking about personal growth." "Logically speaking," I replied calmly, "this sounds like a negotiation. My counsel is standing by." Then I turned to Dan and asked about his new camera equipment. Just moved the conversation along like nothing happened. Beth stood frozen for a minute before sitting down. Jill mumbled something about an early morning and left before coffee. The party broke up pretty quick after that. That night, Beth tried damage control, claiming I'd misunderstood her toast. I just nodded and said, "Time will tell if so." She glared. "I'm taking everything, Mike. The house, the business. You'll be left with nothing." "You'll be nothing without me anyway." I cracked a half smile. "Then this should be easy for you." 3 days later, the official divorce papers arrived. Game on. I knew it was coming, but seeing those papers still hits different. Beth filed on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, her lawyer was calling mine with a settlement offer that basically ignored our entire prenup. She wanted 50% of everything, including my premarital assets and business equity, plus the house, plus alimony based on my potential future earnings. It was delusional. When my lawyer told me the offer, I actually laughed. "Is she serious?" "They always start high," he said, "but there's more. They're filing for an emergency financial order to freeze joint accounts pending resolution." That wasn't funny. That was a problem. Within 48 hours, our joint accounts were indeed frozen by court order. Her filing claimed I was hiding assets and making threatening statements about financial abandonment. Complete bullshit, but effective. The court plays it safe with these claims initially. More followed. Her complaint included vague allegations of patterns of control and emotional manipulation. Claimed I isolated her from friends despite the countless social events she hosted at our house, belittled her business aspirations despite fronting the capital and ongoing expenses, and used financial leverage to keep her dependent despite the separate accounts and unlimited spending. Reading it made me sick. Not just because it was false, but because someone I'd loved for a decade could so casually paint me as a monster to get more money. It was calculated character assassination, plainly meant to pressure me into settling just to avoid the public smear. Then the real ambush began. Her lawyer convinced a judge I might be cooking the books at my company. Next thing I know, I've got some court-appointed bean counter crawling through every invoice and receipt from the last 3 years. This wasn't just about our marriage anymore. They were coming after my business. The business I'd built before I even met Beth. The auditor questioned everything. Why did this project go over budget? Why was this employee paid a bonus? Why did we use this vendor instead of a cheaper alternative? Every business decision I'd made was suddenly suspect. My CFO spent days pulling documentation instead of doing his actual job. Someone, I wonder who, made an anonymous complaint to my company's HR department claiming I created a toxic work environment and was emotionally unstable due to divorce proceedings. HR had to investigate, which meant awkward conversations with my team and executives. "Look, Mike, we know this is bullshit," my VP of operations told me, "but we have to go through the motions. It's impacting morale though. People are worried." I had to call an all-hands meeting to address the elephant in the room. Yes. I'm going through a divorce. No. It won't affect the company's stability or your jobs. Yes. There are some legal proceedings involving our finances. No. There's nothing improper to find. Let's all stay focused on our projects. Easier said than done. The distraction was constant. The cherry on top, one of my biggest clients, a commercial developer I'd worked with for 8 years, called to express concerns about whether my personal situation would affect our ongoing projects. I had to drive to their office for an emergency meeting to keep them from pulling 3 contracts worth over $1 million in revenue. He eventually agreed to keep us on, but with additional oversight that we'd never needed before. The trust was damaged. The hits kept coming. My business line of credit suddenly got reviewed by the bank. My personal credit score dropped 85 points from all the inquiries. The health insurance company accidentally removed me from our family plan. My mail started disappearing from our box, including court notices, which nearly caused me to miss a hearing. For 2 weeks straight, I barely slept. Not because I was heartbroken over Beth, that ship had sailed the moment I heard her plotting with Jasper, but because everything I'd worked for was under threat. My company, my reputation, my financial security, all because I married someone who decided my decade of support entitled her to everything I owned. My lawyer kept me grounded. "This is exactly why they're going nuclear," he explained. "They want you desperate, sleep-deprived, and willing to settle just to make it stop. Don't give them what they want." I'd sit on my deck at 3 a.m. thinking about the situation. I was watching a woman who lived rent-free in a mansion I paid for try to paint me as the villain while cashing checks with my name on them. The whole time, Beth was posting these vague inspirational quotes on Instagram. Stuff like, "Sometimes walking away is the strongest move and know your worth," then add tax. Her followers ate it up, commenting how brave she was, if they only knew. This wasn't about love anymore. This was financial warfare. And despite the initial hits, I still had 2 aces up my sleeve. The weeks after Beth filed were brutal. The legal system isn't built for innocent people. It's built for process. And that process is slow, expensive, and favors whoever strikes first with the most dramatic claims. Every morning started with some new emergency. A motion filed, an account frozen, a demand for documents that would take days to compile. I was spending hours on the phone with my lawyer instead of running my business. We had a preliminary hearing where the judge decided on temporary arrangements while the divorce proceeded. Despite our prenup specifically saying no temporary support was required, the judge ordered me to pay Beth $8,000 a month for ongoing living expenses. This on top of the fact that I was still paying the mortgage on our main house where she was living, plus all the utilities and insurance. The judge's reasoning: Beth had become accustomed to a certain lifestyle and needed continuity during this difficult transition. Never mind that she was the one who chose to blow up our marriage or that she had her own income from her business. My lawyer tried to argue that the prenup covered this exact scenario, but the judge basically said, that's for the final hearing to decide. For now, we maintain status quo. Status quo meaning Beth gets to live expense-free while I bleed cash. The court also appointed a forensic accountant to determine the true value of my business at my expense. Of course, this guy charged $400 an hour to tell me things I already knew about my own company. The audit was destroying us from the inside. The court-appointed accountant demanded access to everything: client contracts, profit margins, salary structures. My office manager was working overtime just to comply with document requests. 3 of my project managers were getting deposed about company operations. Clients were getting nervous about confidentiality. One client actually pulled a $200,000 renovation project, citing uncertainty about your company situation. That meant I had to lay off 2 guys I just hired specifically for that job. Having to tell them, sorry, no work after all, was gut-wrenching. Beth's lawyer was also demanding copies of every text, email, and social media message I'd sent or received in the past 3 years. The justification: looking for evidence of hidden assets or abusive patterns. It was a fishing expedition designed to find anything they could twist into their narrative. One Tuesday morning, I walked into the office to find my executive assistant in tears. "I'm so sorry," she said, handing me a letter. "I got subpoenaed for your divorce case. They want all my texts and emails with you for the past year." Turns out, Beth's team was fishing for anything they could use. Inappropriate messages, financial discussions, schedule details that might indicate secret meetings. There was nothing to find, but the invasion felt personal. They were dragging innocent people into our mess. My assistant wasn't the only one they subpoenaed. My business partner, my brother, even my elderly mother, anyone who might have information they could use against me. My mom called me crying, afraid she'd say the wrong thing and hurt my case. She's 76 with a heart condition. The stress wasn't good for her. The temporary financial order meant I was living on a court-approved allowance for my own money while the case proceeded. I had to submit receipts for anything over $500 to the court to prove I wasn't dissipating assets. Meanwhile, Beth had somehow gotten approved for a higher monthly stipend than mine, despite having virtually no living expenses. The system at work. I had to move out of our house, the one I paid for, and into a 1-bedroom apartment, not because the court ordered it, but because staying under the same roof as Beth was becoming dangerous. She was baiting me into arguments, then recording them secretly once I caught her editing a recording of us discussing bills, cutting out her provocations, and leaving only my frustrated responses. My attorney costs were approaching 6 figures. The business disruption was costing more. I had to take out a personal loan just to keep up with all the expenses, legal fees, temporary support, 2 households, plus the ongoing company audit. I had to lay off 2 more employees because we'd lost another major contract during all this chaos. That was the lowest point. Watching good people lose their jobs because of my personal drama. People with families, mortgages, all collateral damage in Beth's war against me. On top of all that, my doctor diagnosed me with stress-induced hypertension, started me on blood pressure meds at 45 years old, and said if I didn't get my stress under control, I was headed for a heart attack. I'd lost 15 pounds without trying. I just couldn't eat with all the stress. I almost gave up. My friends tried to be supportive, but most were couples who knew us both. They felt caught in the middle. A few guy friends stuck by me, but others went silent, afraid of getting dragged into the mess. The isolation was almost as bad as the financial bleeding. That night, I sat in my sad apartment looking at settlement scenarios. Give her the house and 40% of everything to make this go away. It would hurt, but at least there'd be certainty. I could rebuild, maybe sell the business and start over somewhere else. As I stared at those numbers, something clicked. This felt familiar, like I'd been here before, ready to cave just to end the pain. Then I remembered, this was exactly what Beth did to me for years. Create enough discomfort that I'd pay any price for peace. Not this time. I called my lawyer at 11 p.m. We're not settling. Not 1 cent more than the prenup specifies. In fact, I want to countersue for legal fees based on bad faith negotiations. He sounded more awake than anyone should at that hour. That's what I wanted to hear. And actually, I've been doing some digging that might interest you. I told him to try his best. 2 days later, my lawyer and I met with Beth and her lawyer for a settlement conference. I hadn't seen Beth in person since she moved out. She looked good, new haircut, expensive outfit, trying to project success. Her lawyer started with the usual about amicable resolution and fair division, then laid out their final offer. Still ridiculous, but slightly less delusional than before. They generously come down to 45% of all assets and reduced alimony demands to just 7 years instead of permanent. My lawyer let them finish, then slid 2 folders across the table. Before we respond to your offer, we have some information to discuss, he said calmly. He opened the first folder. This is the prenuptial agreement Mrs. Reed signed when you married. A standard document, fairly generous given the circumstances. Beth's lawyer nodded impatiently. My lawyer opened the second folder. This is the updated prenuptial agreement Mrs. Reed signed 5 years ago during your mortgage refinancing on the lake house property. Beth's head snapped up. What updated agreement? My lawyer continued like she hadn't spoken. This document includes additional clauses that significantly alter the terms in certain circumstances. He highlighted the key section, in the event that either party makes claims of emotional abuse, financial control, or similar allegations that are not substantiated by clear and convincing evidence. The asset division shall be modified to 85% in favor of the accused party and 15% to the accusing party. The color drained from Beth's face. I never signed that. My lawyer slid a document toward her. Your initials are on every page. Your signature is on the last page, notarized. You even added a smiley face next to your name, something you always do. I looked directly at Beth. You did read the document, right? You initialed every page. Or were you just rushing to get to your luxury retreat in Sedona that weekend? She had no answer because she hadn't read it. She'd been so excited about the 5-day spa retreat I'd surprised her with. She'd signed whatever I put in front of her with minimal explanation. Gold digger classic moves. Just refinance paperwork, I'd said, which it was partly. Her lawyer tried to recover, but mine wasn't done. We hired a forensic accountant, my lawyer said, opening another folder. Mrs. Reed forgot to disclose $320,000 in jewelry, wired $175,000 right before filing, and faked her business reports. He showed transfers Beth made to an LLC in Wyoming that traced back to Jasper. Then came the emails we recovered. Beth used the same password for her business email as our Netflix. The messages between her and Jasper laid out their whole plan, including him coaching her to seem afraid of me in public and his 15% cut of whatever she got above the prenup amount. Beth gripped the table edge. Her lawyer looked sick. She thought she could outmaneuver a man who built a company from scratch. I said, the moment she doctored those transfers, she played herself. Her lawyer asked for a break. When they returned an hour later, his tone had completely changed. Perhaps the original prenup terms would be acceptable after all. My lawyer pushed harder, demanding the updated agreement terms and legal fees. 2 days later, they caved completely. Long story short, 1 month later, the divorce was final. Beth got her 25%, nothing more. I kept the house, my company, and my dignity. Of course, Jasper ghosted Beth when the money wasn't what they'd planned. Her supplement brand now offers financial empowerment for women seminars. The irony isn't lost on me. I'm dating again, a real estate agent who makes her own money and hates drama. No moving in, no joint accounts. The prenup lesson from my dad was the best inheritance he ever gave me. Beth didn't want a husband, she wanted a mark. She just picked the wrong one. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.